Hi everyone, welcome to Module 10 of Kinesiology 2050 Applied Health and Well-Being. This is all about putting everything we've done together in the health unit and creating a comprehensive health plan for yourself and for your fictitious client. Now, the big piece is we haven't gone over fitness yet. So most of this is going to be about how to create a fitness plan based on goals. So based on, again, either your goals or your client's goals, because a fitness plan isn't generic, just like a nutrition plan isn't generic, and it shouldn't be generic. It should be based on, first of all, what a person wants to achieve by even moving their body in the first place, but also who they are, what gender they are, how big they are, how old they are, all that kind of stuff comes into play about how to create an effective, comprehensive health plan. So at the end of this unit, what you're going to do is you're going to have a comprehensive health plan for yourself and for your client, and they may be very, very different. And again, I want you to look through both lenses because it may be something that you may already be good at and you feel good at, and so you don't need to do that for yourself. But part of this class is understanding how to do it from a vocational aspect and how to really inspire other people to be able to look at really helpful ways regarding their kind of total overall well-being, and health and nutrition, fitness is a big part of that. So this unit, this content video is mostly based on the components of fitness, how you would put a fitness plan together, what fitness looks like. Again, there's not a generic plan. Fitness just means moving your body. And if you don't move your body, you're going to lose the ability to move your body. So I want you to kind of remember that car analogy. If I was going to give you a perfect car and the only thing is that you had to drive it from now until the end of, until you weren't alive anymore, how would you take care of that? And so fitness really plays a lot into that. I also want to, this is going to sound super dramatic, and it's not, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but you are, not even just now, but even pre-COVID, you are more than any other time in human history being robbed of your movement. Absolutely, hands down. I mean, we used to have to move to keep our life going. We used to have to move to do everything in our lives, including get up and answer the phone, including get up and turn the TV, including open our garage door, including, everything that now is done for us through technology or through mechanical or achievements, that those are all really being taken away from us. And I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm not questioning the advance of technology, but what I am asking you to do is recognize how much more than any other time in history that movement just to exist is being robbed from you. So the point is not to get angry about that, and the point is not to just feel frustrated because that is the reality. The point is trying to realize how you can replace what's being taken away from you. Okay, so this is all about how do you begin to replace movement in your life. We're made to move, and movement leads much more to a higher sense of well-being than almost anything else that we're going to do. So how do you find a way to move? How do you find a way to encourage clients to move, that they're going to do it? Because the reality, and this is the sad reality, is there's all kinds of information out there. And it's still true that about 80 to 90% of our population just don't move. So it's not a lack of information. It's really a lack of motivation, a lack of inspiration, and a lack of presenting it in a way that people are really motivated and want to and have a good time just moving their bodies. Because when we come out, people saying you should do this, you should do that, and we give them a really prescribed thing that they're going to hate to do, they're not ever going to stick to it. So the idea, especially when you're working with clients, is who are they? What do they like to do? What's appropriate for them to do? Is it appropriate for, a 200-pound older woman to try to start a jogging program? Probably not. I had a woman come to my aerobics class many, 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 many years ago. I used to teach at the very first LA Fitness, long time ago. But she was an older woman and had extra weight on her, grandma, and used to stand, and she was beautiful. Her name was Bertha, Hispanic woman, um, and she used to just kind of stand in the back and move her arms because that's all that was appropriate for her to do. But she loved it and she found a way to do it. We had this class that was really connected and we had fun. The biggest thing about fitness is making it fun. If it's not fun, you're not going to do it. So when you're working with other people, you've got to find ways to encourage them to make movement fun, to have enjoyment in the way they move. But so she would go, day after day after day and only move her arms. But then she got better at that. And then she started doing a couple classes a day. And then she could jump around and move like everybody else. And she ended up losing 80 pounds. And, she was doing 2 or 3 classes a day. And the transformation in her was amazing. But she should have never started off with what she finished with. Because if she started off trying to do several hours a day in a hardcore class, moving like she was at the end, she would have quit because she would have hurt herself, or it wouldn't have been appropriate. She would have been too tired, right? So the progression is really important, and knowing how to prescribe exercise is really important. And you don't know how to prescribe exercise until you really learn what different types of exercise does, because it's not the same. And there's a lot of myths about exercise, and there's a lot of myths about what might help and what might not help, and there's a lot of misinformation. And I see it all the time. I've been in this industry for a really, really, really long time. And when I'm going to pick on both genders here, but I'll see a woman or a young woman in the brick when the brick used to be open, and wanting thinner thighs, right? So she's on the thigh weight machine. It's just not going to work that way. The thigh weight machine is going to give you beautifully sculpted leg muscles, and that's really important, but it's not going to get rid of the fat there, right? That's a totally different thing. And so you need to understand that, because I see a lot of people wasting their time doing activities that aren't going to reach their goals, and then they just get frustrated and quit. So the idea is have enough foundational understanding of what types of exercise do what, and then be able to prescribe it from there in a way that people like it. So first of all, there's a thing called specificity of exercise. You get better at what you do, right? So if somebody wants to get better at sculpting their body, then their primary exercise would be something along weight training or resistance training. If somebody really wants to get better at losing a lot of body fat, it wouldn't be. And again, I'm not saying don't do these. I'm going to give you the 5 components of fitness, and really every single component is really important, but people choose to focus on different ones. So I'm not encouraging you to do one at the cost of the others, but what I am doing is trying to get you to understand what each of these components are all about, so you can appropriately do for yourself or for your client the activities that are actually going to help you reach your own goals. So specificity of exercise means that you get better at what you do. Okay, and we're going to talk a lot about that. So here's just kind of an example. I'm going to talk about a lot about what aerobic exercise is. And aerobic exercise, I don't mean just by a lot of people dancing around in a gym in a room somewhere, right? Aerobic exercise is any kind of exercise that means with oxygen. Aerobic means just with oxygen. And so we see the improvements from that, right? We see your resting heart rate go down. We see your stroke volume go up. We see your VO2 max go up. Those are all heart and lung improvements. So when you see somebody that really wants to improve their overall health, right, something that includes aerobic exercise is really important. If you see somebody that really wants to just sculpt their body in a different way, and again, I'm not saying in exclusion of the other, But then the emphasis would be more on some kind of strength training, some kind of weight training, right? Because they do different things. So your results to any activity are specific to the activity that you're performing. And again, I'm not saying instead of, but I'm just saying where you put most of your focus. It's important to know that because there are a lot of misunderstandings about exercise, and we're going to try to go over that. So we have something called the components of fitness, and basically the components of fitness means there's different areas of fitness and there's different areas of the way that we measure health in regards to fitness. Okay, you have muscular strength, and I'll go over these more in depth, but muscular strength is really kind of how strong a muscle gets, and usually it's associated with size, and usually it's associated with some kind of muscular sculpting. Muscular endurance is the ability of the muscle to move repetitively, right? So it's not usually associated with so much increase in size, but it's still associated with keeping your body upright and keeping your muscular system toned, but it's not so much in kind of increasing muscular size. And again, we're going to talk about all of this. Cardiovascular fitness, sometimes you call it cardiorespiratory fitness, is about your whole heart and lung system and how that really works under certain kinds of exercise. And so if you talk to somebody that really is just interested in being as healthy as they can as they age, cardiovascular fitness is the thing to look at. You know, if we want to look at heart disease, or if we want to look at lowering blood pressure, if we want to look at reducing obesity, or all the what we call you know, all the diseases of lifestyle, all our lifestyle diseases are cut down by cardiovascular fitness, which is very different than muscular training, right? And so it's really important to know this. Flexibility. You know, flexibility gets often forgotten, and I'm going to talk about why is flexibility important. Body composition, the makeup of your body in terms of fat and lean body tissue, that's hugely important because, again, a lot of our diseases are diseases of lifestyle. We're killing ourselves because of our lifestyle choices, and body composition is a big part of that. So we're going to talk about how exercise plays into all these different components. First of all, what the component is, how exercise plays into it, and what you really specifically need to do in that exercise to be able to find improvement. And super important, again, I'm not saying one in exclusion of the other. You really should be focusing on all these areas. Usually people choose to kind of put a little bit more emphasis in one area than the others, but you really should be working on all these areas in conjunction with each other. More than once, I've seen somebody that is so into muscular strength and so into bodybuilding, and they have, you know, they die early of a heart attack because all they're worrying about is their body sculpting, and they haven't even given a thought to what cardiovascular fitness looks like. So it's really important to understand all these different areas and work on all these different areas. So what is cardiorespiratory fitness? Again, I choose to call it cardiorespiratory because it's a little more specific than cardiovascular. Cardiorespiratory fitness is the ability of the circulatory and respiratory systems to supply blood and oxygen to the working body. In other words, if you go out and run, or you go out and jog, or you go out and swim, or you go out and bicycle, your heart and your lungs need to work together to supply oxygen and nutrients to your whole body to be able to perform that exercise in a continuous manner. And so what happens when they do that is they get much better at doing that. And when they get much better at doing that, that cuts down our regular diseases, you know, kind of our diseases, our lifestyle diseases. Right? So we're working out our heart and our lungs, which are basically the systems that have most to do with our overall health. So cardiorespiratory fitness is hugely important in just maintaining an overall healthy lifestyle. It's the best measurement of a person's health, and it's the best measurement of their longevity. Again, it reduces heart disease, blood pressure, obesity, all kinds of stuff. So what is cardiorespiratory fitness, and what does it take to get better? Cardiorespiratory exercise. The exercise that would help you in cardiorespiratory endurance is what we call aerobic exercise. All aerobic means is with oxygen, right? It just means that your heart is delivering oxygen through your blood to all your working muscles so they can keep sustaining that movement. Okay. The definitions that we have for aerobic activity is rhythmic, continuous movement. And what we mean by rhythmic isn't like that you're doing it to music, although a lot of people do it to music. Rhythmic means that the muscle is going back and forth. And continuous means that we're just going to continue. So it would be something like jogging or running, but not so fast that you're running out of breath, or riding a bicycle, or doing any of the cardio machines at the gym, or something where you're doing a sustained exercise where it's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for a specific amount of time. Usually that means about 20, usually that means about 20 to 30 minutes. Because it takes that long for your aerobic systems to kick in. So our gold standard of exercise for cardiorespiratory endurance, I'm giving you two standards here. It used to be 30 minutes of aerobic activity at least 3 times a week, 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes you'll see 20 minutes. And that really still is the gold standard. We see that as the standard for fitness. And we had those standards for a long time, and not very many people were doing it. We still had 85% of our population not moving. So all the kind of the organizations that really deal with health and fitness, the American Health Association and American Heart Association, got together and created new guidelines. So the current guidelines, and it sounds like it's more, but it's really not, because listen, it says accumulate 30 to 60 minutes moderate activity most days of the week. So it sounds like a lot more, but there's a difference between 30 minutes of aerobic activity means continuous. So that means you're going to go out and you're going to jog, run, bicycle, swim, play basketball, play soccer if you're not having too many pauses there, for a continuous 30 minutes. The new guidelines are accumulate 30 to 60 minutes of moderate activity most days a week. So lower intensity activity, walking, kind of an easier hike, just moving your body can count. And this is accumulate. It's not that it has to be continuous. So you can do 10 minutes in the morning. You can stop and, say you're doing your homework and you just stop every 2 hours and go out for a quick 10-minute walk around the block and come back. You can get all of that time in by different pauses during the day. So this is really cool. This is when people started counting their steps. And so the prescription changed. We've never really left the first prescription of 30 minutes at least 3 times a week, because that is still kind of the gold standard. But now what is really recommended by most of these organizations is just move. Basically just get out and move. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Park your car as far as you can from the store and take that time walking into the store. Go out and, have scheduled breaks to go out and take a walk around the park, count your steps, do all of this stuff, because it's really getting more people moving. And so the goal is to really get more of our population moving. So now the new goals again for cardiorespiratory endurance are accumulate 30 to 60 minutes of moderate activity. And so you need to think about, again, you're making these exercise prescriptions for yourself and for a fictitious client that you've already kind of created the profile for. What do they do? What do they like? I once had a woman in one of my aerobic classes that she was there all the time. It was a really hardcore class. She basically got dragged there by her husband, but she would come. And then she stopped coming because she started walking with her friends. And when she started walking with her friends, she loved it. And they would walk further and walk further and walk further. And pretty soon they decided they were going to walk a marathon. And, and then she walked another marathon. And every time she walked another marathon, she'd call up and she would call me up on the phone and let me know. And if you don't know what a marathon is 26 miles. It's a long way to walk or run. But, so she dropped something that kind of theoretically would be the harder exercise to do something that theoretically, again, walking would be the easier exercise, but she loved it and she did it often. And that kind of just transformed everything that she did. She actually got in better shape because she was doing it more and she was doing it longer. So you need to think about who you're working with, whether it's, again, yourself or whether you're working with your client. What do they like to do? If their goal is to get healthier, so you need to prescribe cardiorespiratory fitness, are they a person that would go out for a 30-minute run 3 times a week? Or are they a person that really just needs to count their steps and make sure they're getting 10,000 steps a day, right? So you need to really think about who you're working with and what they're likely to do. Because I don't care if you devise the best plan in the world that, from an exercise physiology standpoint sounds great. If they don't do it, it doesn't matter, right? So you need to really think about who you're working with, what their goals are, what their likes are, and develop some kind of inspirational plan that they would actually do. So cardiorespiratory endurance, again, is something that you would do that you just kind of create a whole overall healthy body as you age. Right. And I don't mean that it's only important as you're aging, but it's super, super, super important to keep that kind of health level up all throughout your lifetime. Okay, so again, what is aerobic activity? Continuous rhythmic large muscle movement for at least 20 minutes. We say large muscle because large muscle movement uses more, anything that uses blood and oxygen, and carbohydrates is an energy source, and fat is an energy source, which aerobic activity does, right? You can measure it in calories burned. Remember I said calorie is a measurement of energy, so you can actually measure exercise in calories. And the larger the muscles, the more calories you're going to burn, basically, the more aerobic activity throughout your whole body. So I always kind of I'm into like, what's the easy rule of thumb here? The easy rule of thumb is the more muscle mass you use, the better, right? And the bigger the muscle mass you use, the better. So always try to engage. And by the way, your hips and your legs are the biggest muscle groups that you have in your body. So anytime that you can engage more muscle mass, that's usually a more effective exercise in terms of aerobic activity. Running as long as it's not just like I'm going to run halfway down the block and then pant so hard I have to stop, right? Be able to continuous running, jogging, swimming, soccer. Basketball can be, I always say basketball on a full court, basketball on a half court. Sometimes you're just standing more than you're actually moving. Bicycle, cardio machines at the gym, any kind of sport activity that you'd actually be running, continuously moving. Baseball is not aerobic. It's a great, great, great. I love baseball. Great exercise for motor control, great exercise for all kinds of other things, but it is not an aerobic activity. It's not the thing that's really going to get you fit. Okay, but any kind of sport that combines like a continuous running movement, then that would be an aerobic activity. And again, these are just some examples. There's other aerobic activities as well, but these are kind of the primary examples. Okay, body composition. Body composition is our second component of fitness. Body composition, I'm kind of give you this example here because you can kind of see what the muscular body looks like in the body that is housing more body fat. Now, so definition for body composition is an analysis of the percentage of stored fat in a body as compared to lean body tissue. It's usually understood as fat to lean tissue percentage. Let me remind you that body fat is just stored energy. It's just stored energy, right? Because there's so much emotion around this. There's so much shame around it. And as long as body fat is seen as a shame-based topic, nobody's ever going to succeed in changing it. So I just want you to remember, it's just like at some point, whoever you're dealing with, whether you're dealing with yourself or you're dealing with a client, and by the way, if you are going into this profession and you are going to be working in clients in whatever way that you are, even students, if you're going into pedagogy or if you're going into cardiac rehab or anything like that, chances are you're going to have a lot of clients that do have a goal to be able to reduce their body fat. So it's really important to understand what this is all about, even if it's not something that's on your radar for yourself. It's really important from a professional standpoint to understand how it all works. Fat turns to muscle myth. There's a lot of myths around fitness, and muscle and fat is one of them. They don't turn into each other. I hear this a lot. I want to turn my fat into muscle. It doesn't happen. Or somebody says, oh, I stopped working out and all my muscle turned into fat. It doesn't. It's like saying an apple turned into an orange. They are two completely different tissue types. One does not turn into another. They're just completely different tissue types. And if you want to change your body composition, you need to do two things. You need to reduce your body fat, but you also need to increase your muscle mass. Reducing the body fat is the biggest piece of that, right? Because you can find a lot of people that are, very, very, very toned, muscular systems. And if they're in kind of a whole envelope of body fat, you'll never see it. So it's really important to understand that if you are wanting to change your body composition as one of your goals, you work the muscle mass, yes, but you also do a different activity to make sure that you're reducing your storage of body fat. And because all body fat is stored energy, what you do is activities that require more energy. I mean, it's pretty easy. And that's why I was saying, you don't do a thigh machine exercise to get skinny thighs, right? If you want to lose the body fat off of your thighs, you need to do an exercise that uses a lot of energy, which is usually an aerobic type of exercise, right? Same thing, 100 million sit-ups isn't going to get you a really well-cut abdomen. It might under the, it'll beautifully tone the muscles, but if it's under a layer of body fat, you're never going to see it. So it's really important to understand that really changing your body composition is a two-pronged approach, but you really need to be doing some type of aerobic activity that really is a high energy cost activity. Because what we're trying to do, right, if energy in and energy out makes you stay the same, then what we want to do is put more energy out than energy that we're bringing in. So exercise to change body composition would again be exercises that require a lot of activity. So what that would be aerobic activity. Again, are those activities that burn a lot of energy. And there is no such thing as spot reducing. So in other words, you just can't pick where you want to lose it and work that spot. You need to work your whole system overall and burn as much energy as you can. And your body just uses up the stored body fat, again, just stored energy where it will, and eventually it will get everywhere. But there is no such thing as spot reducing. So, and the thing is that you need to do it more, because if you're doing it for the amount of aerobic activity you need to do for health changes is less than the amount of activity you need to do for body composition changes. And again, it's just because energy in and energy out. So what we want to do is we want to expend more energy more often. So to really see a change in body composition, and this is just from exercise, the best way to do it is to take in less. So to do it through diet and through exercise. So you're taking in less and you're burning off more. So the exercise prescription for body composition change would be 30 to 60 minutes of aerobic activity at least 5 days a week. So it's longer and it's more often, because again, we want to make sure that we're burning off the energy that's stored in us, right? It shouldn't be a shame-based thing. It's a pretty easy energy balance equation. We just want to burn more energy off than we're taking in. And this is, again, just a ballpark, because everybody's different and different sizes and different fitness levels correlate differently. but typically about 30 minutes of activity will be about 300 calories. And so again, 3,500 calories is a pound of body fat. So you want to make sure that you're doing enough exercise that you're actually burning off. So you're going into an energy deficit if you want to change your body composition primarily by exercise. And again, the best way to change body composition is through a combination of diet and exercise. So what is muscular strength? Again, so this is our third component of fitness. So so far we've gone over cardiorespiratory fitness and body composition, now muscular strength. What is muscular strength? Muscular strength is the maximum force that a muscle can apply. So that's the definition of it. High levels of muscular strength are usually associated with bodybuilding or body sculpting. In other words, we work the muscle and the muscle gets bigger and it sculpts our bodies. Muscular strength, let me just talk a little bit about a muscle fiber. The way you get stronger is that you actually tear the muscle a little bit. I know that sounds funny. When you lift weights, and if you're lifting heavy weights, you're actually hurting your muscles, and that's what you want to do because you just hurt them a tiny bit. And what you do is you get little tiny tears in the muscle fiber, and then it heals stronger, and it heals bigger. Also in that healing is some hormonal input. So if you are a female, because I see a lot of females that are just afraid to lift a weight because they're afraid they're going to get too big. One of the things that helps you repair tissue is hormones, and females don't really have the hormones to get as big as men do. And I'm not saying we don't have them at all, and obviously you may have seen women bodybuilders, but for a woman to get big, you really have to have a goal to be lifting weights in a way that's going to make you big. So I just really, really, really do not want to discourage in any way a female from lifting weights. It's really important. Your body is the thing that's going to carry you around, and your musculoskeletal system is the thing that is responsible for ambulating you or for getting you through your life. So I'm going to talk a little bit about muscular endurance, and then I'm going to go back and talk about the prescriptions. So muscular endurance, again, is the ability of the muscle to repeat contractions over a period of time. It's usually measured with like a push-up test or a sit-up test. It's just how much can that muscle keep going? Okay, so it's associated with body toning, but not necessarily increasing in size. So you'll see some sculpting and you'll see some toning, but you won't necessarily see the increase in size that you do with muscular strength. So what's the difference? Muscular strength and muscular endurance is basically, the difference is how much you challenge the muscle fiber. Right? In muscular strength, you're challenging the muscle fiber because you're lifting a heavier weight, so you're tearing it more, so it's going to build back bigger and stronger. Muscular endurance, you're using that same muscle group, but you're not doing it with quite so much weight or quite so much resistance, so it doesn't break down quite so much. So it still works the muscle, it just doesn't really make it rebuild in the same way. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about why you should even work on muscular strength and muscular endurance. Your musculoskeletal system, I want you to just imagine a pile of sticks. Okay, I'm just going to throw a pile of sticks on the floor, and all it is a pile of sticks, right? But you got to take that pile of sticks and you got to make, kind of create an upright structure with rubber bands. Okay, and so it's like your skeletal system is the sticks and the rubber bands are the muscles, right? So it's super important, right, to be able to keep that skeletal system or that pile of sticks standing upright and standing up balanced, to be able to have those rubber bands have some integrity, have them have some strength, but also have them have some flexibility, also kind of be balanced with each other, right? So your musculoskeletal system is the thing that's going to carry your body through the rest of your life. I want you, again, remember that car analogy. right? So if I gave you a car, how would you take care of that car? Well, the musculoskeletal system is like the body of the car. It's going to carry you through, right? So you want to make sure that you maintain your muscle mass as you age. The biggest missed reason for work is back pain, right? And people, as they age, they begin to get all out of balance, or they have to have a hip replacement, or they have to have a knee replacement. And a lot of times it's not just the joint, it's the way the joint gets pulled because the muscles are out of balance. So it's super important. This is, your body is the thing that's going to ambulate you, right? So where cardiorespiratory endurance really works your whole heart and lung system, right? And all of those health values that are so important as you kind of make it through your lifetime. Your musculoskeletal system is the thing that carries you through. And so it's super important. I mean, when people, you know, as they age and as they start going through their life, start getting all kinds of pain. And usually it's because their musculoskeletal system is either too weak or it's out of balance. And it gets to be super important as you begin to age. So it's really important to work on your musculoskeletal system. It's not just about body sculpting. And I'm not putting you down if that's a goal of yours. Zero. I'm not putting you down at all if that's a goal of yours. But a lot of people decide, oh, I just don't want to lift weights because I don't want to be a bodybuilder, or I don't want to get muscles, or I don't, you know what I mean? And you don't have to change the size of your muscle to do some kind of resistance exercise to actually keep your musculoskeletal system in good working order. I mean, that's what we want to do, is keep our musculoskeletal system balanced and in good working order, because it's the thing that's going to carry us through. So it's super important to kind of think about that when you start creating workout programs for yourself and for other people. And changing your muscular strength and muscular endurance, we call resistance exercise. It doesn't have to be a weight. Right? I know, especially now with gyms closed and stuff like that, it doesn't have to be a weight. It can be anything resistance. When you lay down and lift your leg, it's the resistance of the weight of your leg, right? There's a lot of ways to do resistance exercise without actually having to have a weight. So it's really important to kind of understand from a kind of a larger view of why working on muscular strength and muscular endurance is important, and the importance of your musculoskeletal system. Again, that's the thing that's going to ambulate you through, and it's the thing that causes a lot of pain for a lot of people when they age, because they're not keeping it conditioned the way it needs to be able to kind of carry you through your life. So guidelines for programs for muscular strength and muscular endurance. Pick the areas of your body that you want to work on, right? And honestly, the whole body is the best. You don't have to do every machine in the gym, but working on your whole body is a good idea. And by that, I don't mean every machine in the gym, but I do mean kind of, okay, I'm going to work on my upper body, I'm going to work on my lower body. Unfortunately, and again, this is kind of, I pick on both genders here, but a lot of times, you know, you used to see, it's not quite as strong now, but you used to see a lot of guys in the gym and all they cared about was working their chest, right? And they'd have these skinny little legs, but they're going to have this really big chest. So it's really important to kind of think about your whole body, but pick the areas of your body that you want to work on. And I'm going to say as if you were in the brick, just because it's an easy reference for a lot of people, and I know that if you're a freshman coming in, you don't have that reference, and I'm sorry, and hopefully it will be open sometime soon, because that is the gym on campus that, as being a student, you actually have access to. But I'm also going to kind of help you think of some other ways that you can do that as well. Then you need to identify opposing muscle groups, because I want you to, again, think about that stick, right? Think about those sticks and those rubber bands. So if you have one rubber band on one side of a stick that's really strong and another side that's just kind of almost at that breaking point, right? What's going to happen? That stick is going to be pulled all out of balance. And that's what happens to your musculoskeletal system if one side is too strong for the other side. And this is another thing that you used to see a lot in gyms and still do sometimes, because people, again, I'm kind of gender bashing. This is a stereotype, and I don't mean to be just gender bashing. There are mistakes that both genders make, and they kind of tend to go in certain areas, and for sure not all the time. But it's often that you may see somebody really wanting to work on their chest and their upper body and working and working. My ex-husband used to be like this, and we're really good friends now, and I always have to tell this story because doing it wrong can actually be worse for you than not doing it all. And he came from a football culture, growing up in Texas, and it was all about, doing the bench press and getting as strong as you can get. And the problem is if you get your chest too strong and you don't work on your back, what's happening is your chest muscles get really strong and tight, and they start pulling your shoulders forward. So by working opposing muscle groups, if you work your shoulder or you work your chest, you got to work your shoulders, right? A lot of people say push pull or front back or something like that, because a muscle attaches to a joint, and if you don't work that opposing muscle group, the stronger muscle is going to pull that joint out of balance. So it's super, super, super important to keep those muscles balanced. So if you work your chest, you work your back. If you work your bicep, which is the front of your arm, you work your tricep, right? If you work the front of the thigh, which is the quadricep, you work the hamstring, which is the back, right? So it's really important that you always work opposing muscle groups. If you push up, which are your deltoids, you pull down, which are your lats. So a lot of times it's actually the opposite movement. So you pick areas that you want to work on, and then you make sure that you're also doing an exercise for that opposing muscle group, right? And then if you're working with a client, or again, working with yourself, establish whether they want to work on muscular strength or muscular endurance, right? Do they just want to really work on toning their body overall and keeping their body in kind of a healthy, kind of balanced, right, musculoskeletal system? Or is it something that they really want to change their body structure by doing some kind of body sculpting or bodybuilding? Because the way you work out is different, right? The way you work out is different for muscular strength and muscular endurance. So then if you were to work with somebody, and again, this is really hard to say right now because most of our gyms are closed, but if you were working with somebody or trying to figure out this for yourself, you would find out what we call one repetition max. So say, let's just pretend I'm going and I'm working with somebody, and they want to work on their chest, right? And so I would also make sure that they're working on their back. But and they want to get stronger. So they want to work on body building or body sculpting. So they want to work on muscular strength. So I'm going to find out how much they can, so it would be a bench press, right? And I want to find out how much they can bench press with 1 RM. One RM means one repetition max. So I want to find out how much they can just push with one thing, but I'm not going to do that right away, right? Because that's going to hurt them. So I'll kind of put the pin in and say, okay, try this. Okay, push it. Okay, try this. Okay, that's it, right? So that's our reference weight. 1 RM is your reference weight. And by the way, I would do this even if somebody was working on muscular endurance. You always want to know what that 1 RM is. And you should always test 1 RMs on machines. And again, I know this is the hard place right now with our gyms closed, but you're going to have to know this for the future. So 1 RM should always be tested on machines because it's not safe to do it with a free weight. You shouldn't be testing how much you can absolutely press with one press with free weights because you could hurt yourself, right? So you always test 1 RM on a weight machine. So what I would do, okay, right, I'm writing this down, and this person wants to work on their whole body, so we're going to pick muscle groups in the front, and we're going to pick muscle groups in the back, and I'm going to test 1 RM for each of those muscle groups, right? So I'm going to test a 1 RM for their chest. I'm going to test a 1 RM for probably a butterfly machine where they're pulling back, so I can find out what their back, because muscles are different and muscle strength is different. So 1 RM on your chest is going to look very different than 1 RM for your bicep. So you would test 1 RM for every exercise that they're going to do. And then what happens is then you're going to take a certain percentage of that, whether you want to work on muscular strength and make the muscle bigger, or if you just want to work on muscular endurance. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But so you would just test 1 RM. You'd figure out the exercises that you want to do, make sure you're doing opposing muscle groups. It's easy to do this usually in a gym, again, because most of the machines have little pictures and they'll tell you what muscles you're working with those pictures. So I'll talk about the difference between muscular strength and muscular endurance in a minute. But you also need to remember, it's so important to understand that when you lift a weight or when you do any kind of resistance exercise, you are not getting stronger in that moment. You're actually getting weaker in that moment because you're kind of tearing the muscle fiber, right? And you're trying to do that. You don't want to tear it too much and hurt yourself, but you want to do it enough that you challenge the muscle, that the muscle rebuilds and rebuilds stronger. Okay, so you need to give it time to rebuild. You should never do the same body parts on consecutive days. It takes 48 hours for that muscle to repair itself. If you are a person, once COVID's over and you want to be in the gym every single day, you can be in the gym every single day. You just don't do the same muscle group. Sometimes people do upper body, lower body, or they do front back, or they do push pull, right? You just don't want to be working the same consecutive, the same muscle groups on consecutive days, because you need to give the 48 hours for it to repair. Otherwise, you're just going to keep breaking that muscle fiber down, and you're never going to get any results out of it. Okay, so say I want to work on muscular strength, right? So I want to really do some body sculpting or some bodybuilding. I want to build my muscles. I want to get stronger. Again, I'm going to pick the opposing muscle groups. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 75% of my RM, 1 RM, right? So you figured out your 1 RM, and then you take 75% of that. So if I did a 1 RM on a bench press and it was 100 pounds, my workout weight wouldn't be that 100 pounds. My workout weight would be 75 pounds. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a set, right? So that's a set is so many different, there's reps, which is how many times you do it. A set is how many reps are in, like what you do before you rest, right? So I'm going to start with one set of 6 reps, and then I'm going to pause. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I see is people pause too long. Right? It drives me crazy when I used to go in the brick and they'd spend more time on their phone between their sets, right? You should only rest as long as it takes you to do a set in the first place. So you do 6 and then you rest for about as long as it took you to do that 6. And then then you start adding on. So once you can do 6 well, then you start adding on another set. So you do another set of 6, right? Once you get up to about, then you can also add reps. So once you get up to about 3 sets of 8, you're probably strong enough to drop it back down and add some weight. Because again, especially for muscular strength, you want to keep improving. So once you get up to 3 sets of 8, then you go back down to 2 sets of 6, but you're going to add in weight. Right? And then so you just keep adding in, you keep kind of progressing that way, right? Add in a few more reps, go up to 3 sets. You don't really need to do any more than 3 sets. So you want to go up to 3 sets of 8 and then you drop it back down. And again, we're keeping the reps low between 6 and 8 because with muscular strength, your goal is to kind of tear that muscle fiber down a little bit. So it needs to be a heavy weight to do that. And again, you don't want to do it too much. If you can only do 2 reps, then that's probably too heavy, right? You want to be able to do at least 6, but really be fatiguing at that 6, right? And so then you rest and then you do another set. And you would do that with all of the muscle groups that you have identified, right? So, again, if you're working your chest, you work your back. If you work your bicep, you work your tricep. You work your deltoids pushing up, you're going to pull down with your lats. If you work your hamstrings, your quadriceps going out, you're going to pull the hamstring going back. So you're always working opposing muscle groups. So you can pretty easily figure out an exercise program for you or for yourself based on what's appropriate. Now, again, because you don't have a client that you can have in a gym right now, you're just going to have to kind of make that up if that person really wants to work on their muscular strength. But I want you to give me, just kind of give me a pretend 1RM and then show me that you would take 75% of that and you would figure out the exercises that you're going to do. If you really want to figure out how to figure out a muscular strength program, a bodybuilding program, look up some of the muscles, right? I don't want you to go in and look up these really intricate bodybuilding programs, because what you want to do is you want to start with a really basic program. And what I'm giving you is a really basic program to start out with. Right. So figure out the muscle groups, figure out what exercises would go with those muscle groups, the amount of weight, and then the sets and the reps. Right. Muscular endurance is the same thing, but the thing is with muscular endurance, you don't want to tear the muscle fiber down as much, still a little bit, but not as much, because you don't want it to rebuild that strong or that big, right? So you're still going to identify opposing muscle groups, but instead of taking 75%, now you're going to take 50%. But instead of doing 6 reps, now you're going to do 8 to 15. So basically you want to do more with less weight, right? Because that conditions the muscle more without breaking it down so much. So you're really working on muscle conditioning rather than tearing it down and rebuilding. So you do 1 set starting with 8 of 50%. So again, if I'm going to do the bench press, I go on my 1RM as 100, 50% I want to work on muscular endurance, 50% of that would be 50 pounds, right? And so I'm going to start with a set of 8. Once I get good at that set of 8, I'm just going to keep moving it up till I'm doing a set of 15. Once I can do a set of 15, then I add another set of 8. And then once I can do 2 or 3 sets of 15, then I might want to add weight. And that again is totally, with muscular endurance, you may not want to keep going up and up and up and up in weight. Sometimes people do. Sometimes people say, no, I'm good. I just want to keep the muscles working the way they're working, but I don't necessarily want to keep adding weight because I don't want to keep increasing in size. So that's really up to you or up to your client. If they're just beginning, you probably want to add weight for a while just so they get to kind of a baseline level of fitness. But then they would kind of taper off and keep doing the exercises, but kind of taper off as far as adding in weight. Okay, so flexibility. Again, flexibility is, I want you to think about those sticks and those rubber bands, right? So if a rubber band is too tight for weightlifting, it's going to pull the muscle out of balance. But it might be too tight just from your regular day, right? Sitting at a computer all day long is really tightening up your hip flexor muscles, which are the muscles in the front of your hips, and they get really tight. So it might not be just weightlifting that makes those muscles tight. It might also just be going throughout your day. So flexibility is super important for those opposing muscle groups, again, to keep your body and your skeleton upright and loose, right? You want to keep your muscles strong enough to help you ambulate. Ambulate just means move, right? So you want to keep those muscles strong enough and fit enough to help you move through your life, but you don't want them to get too tight that they're pulling things, right? Because a muscle is always kind of curved around a joint, or almost always curved around a joint. And so they're often pulling a joint out of balance if they're too tight, and that's painful. So flexibility is defined as the range of motion of your joints, or the ability of your joints to move freely. Musculoskeletal system, again, I want you to think about those sticks and rubber bands thing, right? If your muscles are out of balance because of tightness and weakness, or tightness and looseness, then they're going to pull all of those sticks out of balance. And when those sticks are out of balance, then your body really begins to hurt. And again, back pain is the most common reason for missed work in the United States. So flexibility is joint specific. In other words, I may be super flexible in my shoulders, but not very flexible at all in my hamstrings, right? So flexibility is joint specific. So if you want to increase or improve in flexibility, you need to decide which muscle groups you want to increase, right? Or maybe what joint is hurting, and make sure that you are working the muscles that surround that joint. So flexibility is often, like I said, defined as the range of motion around a joint. People say, well, wait a minute, flexibility has to do with the muscle. Why are we talking about joints? Because, like, again, a muscle usually crosses a joint, right? And so if the muscle is too tight, then it's holding the joint too tight. So the other thing is that the muscle fiber itself can get smaller and tighter. So it's really important that we work very gently on kind of pulling it longer. And again, we always need to work on opposing muscle groups. Again, flexibility, I would encourage you, just like muscular strength and muscular endurance, to look at your whole body. There may be places that you want to focus on because you're tighter in one area than the other area, but it's really important to think about keeping your whole body flexible. When you are doing flexibility, you need to identify muscle groups or joints that you want to work on. And then again, find the appropriate stretch for that. You hold the stretch for 30 seconds. You release into the stretch. In other words, you're not bouncing. A lot of times you see bouncing and forcing. And what happens with bouncing and forcing a muscle group is, if you kind of look at these are muscle fibers here. What happens is the muscle fiber, if it's being overstretched immediately, right, with an impact, like if you're bouncing or you're forcing a stretch, the muscle fiber will actually tighten up to protect itself. It doesn't want to be hurt, so it will contract just to protect itself. To be able to effectively stretch that muscle, you need to just really release. In yoga, what we do a lot is kind of just imagine that you're observing the muscle. You're not really in that muscle, but you're just kind of observing it release, right? So you're not fighting against the movement, because if you're fighting against the movement, you're actually contracting the muscle fiber, which is the actual opposite of the thing that we want to do with flexibility. So bouncing and stretching, contraindicated, meaning that it's not good because it's going to produce the opposite effect. You also have something called proprioceptive nerve fibers. Now, proprioceptive nerve fibers are nerve fibers that sense things in your muscles. The proprioceptive nerve fibers actually are nerve fibers that they're sensory nerve fibers. So they sense things going on in your body. You have proprioceptive nerve fibers in your joints that will actually sense the tightness of your joint and actually send messages to your brain about how stressed out to be. So actually, flexibility not only works on the physical part of your body, but it also works on the emotional part of your body. Because especially in your hips, and this is one of the things that and your shoulders, that I really, really, really encourage you to do, is find a good stretching program for the joints in your shoulders and also the joints in your hip, because those are the things that are getting tight all day long. And what happens is those proprioceptive nerve fibers sense the tenseness and send an automatic message to your deep brain to be stressed out. It's not a cognitive thing. It's not like you're aware that it's going on, but because it senses the tightness, it thinks that you're stressed out. So it just thinks that it needs to start the stress response in your body to be able to combat that stress. And what you really need to do is relax that muscle joint to release the proprioceptive nerve fibers to be able to kind of calm your emotional system down. So the mind body, you're going to see this a lot when we talk about stress, but there is a total connection in your mind body complex. And it's really important to know that if you can do a really easy stretching routine for your shoulders and also a really easy stretching routine for your hips, especially your hip flexor muscles, while you are sitting so much at a computer, that really goes a long way to actually reduce your stress level. So if you are working with a client that is spending a ton of time at a computer right now and super stressed out and super tight, flexibility may be their primary component of fitness that they want to work on. And again, like I'm saying, a good fitness program really incorporates all of this stuff, and some people like to focus on one or the other often more than the other. So, somehow all should be combined. But I want you to really think about, if I was working with somebody that was kind of happy with their body weight and they did other things to keep their cardiovascular fitness up, but they were just in constant pain, I would have them really work on a flexibility routine. Right, and especially a flexibility routine really centered in their shoulders and their hips. So it's just really important to understand the people that you're working with, what their needs are, and what can really help. So with an exercise prescription for flexibility, it would be identify the muscle groups that you want to work on, right? Hold a stretch for 30 to 60 seconds. It should be at least 3 times a week. Right, because you want to be able to train the muscle to kind of be in a release state. So it should be about 3 times a week. And again, it would be as long of a program depending on what muscle groups that you want to work with. So, but flexibility is often the forgotten component. So again, your assignment is that you need to create a fitness plan for yourself and your client, and then you need to put that fitness plan into that template that I gave you. So now you have a profile, right? At the very top of that piece of paper, you're going to have a profile. So on your client, I want you to write all the things that you made up about this person, right? How old they are, what they do for a living, how much they move, how much they sit, kind of what their activities of preference are, right? And the same thing for yourself. Just kind of explain who you are, right? Who you are bringing in your profile to this thing. And then really specifically write the goals, right? So what are their goals? Is it to lose weight? Is it to just get to be more healthy? Is it to reduce their blood pressure? Is it to, gain some muscle mass because they're older? Is it to reduce pain in their life? Is it whatever it is? What are those really specific goals? And then again, you're going to give me that nutrition stuff that you've already done. You've already done the nutrition stuff. I just want it put in this document in a way that's, you're just going to kind of review it. So you're going to put the numbers of calories, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and then give me some menu exercises, and then give me a paragraph about kind of what that all means. So you're going to put it all together in kind of a really basic format of reviewing it and understanding all together. And then you're going to create a fitness program. And again, that fitness program is based on everything we just talked about. What are those person's goals or your goals? What kind of activities would you put in? And it's really important to know not just the activities. How often are they? The more that you can be specific, the more they and you are going to be successful at achieving those. And we talked about this with behavior change, right? So what are they going to do? How often are they going to do it? Specifically, if they're going to do it with a person, how is that going to work? How is it built into the schedule? I want to know all those really, because again, remember, we're going back into the behavior change. The more specific you are in creating these plans, the more likely you or your client is at being able to achieve those goals. So I want a real specific fitness plan that's going to meet, match their profile, match what their goals are. Okay. So again, it doesn't have to be super long. I just want it to be specific and really address all of those things that we talked about. Address all of the nutrition things that we talked about, address the components of fitness in a way that are really going to match them, match their profile, match their goals, and match their lifestyle, and be something that they're super motivated and inspired to do. Okay, so again, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be turning in a form for you and a form for a fictitious client, and then again, as always, doing some kind of summary about your wellness activities and your behavior change activities to turn in as well. So you're turning in 3 things this week. Welcome to Module 10. Have a great week.